welcome to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. Sometimes courts do make historic decisions that, in a sense, shape how, in a sense, certain societies develop. Of course, because the people we elect also shape our societies, shape the world we live in. Today, we are talking about a historic judgment that was authored by a bench of Justice Suryakant, along with Justices Deepankar Datta and Justice Ujjal Bhuyan. Now, what is this about? This is about women's reservation for posts in the Delhi High Court Bar Association. And the court has also directed that a meeting of the general body of the Delhi High Court Bar Association be held as early as possible within 10 days. Very strong and nice message from our Supreme Court to, in a sense, increase inclusivity. And of course, we all remember recently there was a woman candidate also for the Supreme Court Bar Association polls. All of this and more, but I think my guests are today who are going to do the talking. They are the one who are experts at it. Let me welcome a very early achiever from India, someone who graduated from the Harvard University, senior advocate Pinky Anand, a lady who broke the glass ceiling many, many years ago. And of course, she's seen the court through its phases to what it has come to today. She joins us today from Lisbon. Ma'am, thank you for your time and looking forward to some interesting insights from you. We have with us Meghna Mishra. You see her regularly on the show. She's a familiar face also. She's a senior partner with Karanjawala and Company, one of India's leading law firms at the Supreme Court. Good to see you, Meghna. Somebody who joins us for the first time on Legally Speaking, we would like to welcome Advocate Diya Kapoor. Thank you for joining and looking forward to some interesting insights from you as well on the show. At the outset, let me request Senior Advocate Pinky Anand to give an opening comment and then we open the show for other comments. Over to you, ma'am.
Tarun, you're right. I mean, you put it very succinctly in the situation. But having said this, as you said, watching the courts from time almost several decades, I feel that the courts in India are actually very, very progressive and have taken miles ahead. I mean, much before even legislature sometimes steps in to try and put the situation in where you have inclusivity, you have gender representation. In fact, when I was arguing the matter before the High Court, some observations came as to why do you require reservation? Are you wanting to fight elections or do you need reservation? So really the question here is not whether you need reservation or you don't, you do. If it was to happen in the normal course, it would take forever. And I always say it's time factor. We can't wait forever. And steps have to be started. We've seen the precedents of the Panchayat Raj amendments, 73rd and 74th amendments. The Women's Reservation Bill has also now come in. The Panchayat amendments actually ensured wide representation, not only at the head, but of voters. So the whole idea is to bring the system and to upgrade it or to bring it into top gear. Right now, it is on a low gear. It would have come at some point. But even in the Supreme Court, Tarun, it didn't happen. The annual general meeting had rejected. And it was after that that the Supreme Court stepped in. And I say it was an amazing, it was an application that was moved in B.T. Kaushik, where the Supreme Court ultimately stepped in and said, no, there has to be reservation. And I remember the chief coming after that, the Chief Justice, and saying why 33% have higher. That's another matter. But having said that, it worked. You had such great representation in the Supreme Court and even more than the reserved seats. And now we are hoping that the High Court, the annual general meeting, if it comes through, very good. If it doesn't, we leave it to the Supreme Court now to step in and to make the necessary judgment, which will pave the way ahead. We are going to have the first woman Chief Justice of India. We'll have representation in the bar. We are also waiting for an Attorney General who will be a woman, by the way. Having said that, even though I was the second additional Solicitor General of India, but we want that. Why should they? Bar hasn't seen enough women representation. It's not the strength that is lacking. It is the field that is to be opened up. And once you give that place, hopefully, no further reservation would be required. It will happen automatically. But you have to start the ball rolling.
Thank you. Thank you for that opening comment. I'll go to Meghna Mishra, partner from Karanjawala and Company, for her opening comment.
So just to add and to take up from where Pinky ma'am left, I think so. First of all, I think Justice Suryakant is a great visionary because earlier when he was sitting with Justice Vishwanathan and now with this judgment of today, when the directions that he has given, this is a time when we are seeing that the Supreme Court and the High Courts are trying to get more women as judges. So this is also another platform, according to me, where women can come forward, and equitable opportunities must be given, albeit if it's through the reservation manner, then so be it, because it is a very welcome step, because this empowers us and it brings us to visible positions of power. And no one can today deny that women don't deserve it. So I'm very hopeful that the meeting which will take place of the general body of the Delhi High Court, they should come up with something positive and something that is going to change how we look at it, because there are also many issues which women will be able to bring forward, because these are sometimes issues peculiar to women practicing advocates. And this is how change is brought about, by this kind of an approach to be taken. And so let's see how the Delhi High Court Bar Association responds. And there are many women who are actively involved in the Delhi High Court Bar Association politics and would be happy to come and take positions of responsibility. So I would leave it at that as an opening comment.
Thank you for your opening comment, and I'll go to Advocate Diya Kapoor for her opening comment. Over to you, Diya.
Yeah, I mean, Tarun, just to add to what you opened with, and I think what everybody supplemented with, this is really it's a great sign of societal change. I mean, what we're seeing today coming from the Supreme Court, repeatedly, and I mean, it's for the last, I want to say, 15 years. So much has changed in the courts. The way women are welcomed, the way women are represented, the way women participate, the way women are received. And I think it's a change the world over. We're seeing a time in the world today where suddenly people are saying, look, women need a seat at the table. And I think it's coming in every form. So the Supreme Court is leading from the front and saying, do it. And I think that, like was rightly pointed out, we're at a very progressive place in our court, where you have, I mean, I want to say 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when I started out, I remember going to the Supreme Court and seeing, the toilet. You guys would have noticed the one next to the canteen. It used to say for advocates only. And I was, sort of a new advocate, and I walked in saying, well, for advocates only, I'll walk in. It didn't say male toilet, but advocates meant males then. It was the male toilet. And so much has changed. You have so many women judges, you have so many women senior advocates. I mean, I think, at the time Ms. Pinky Anand came in, she was probably one of few. But today, the Supreme Court's designated so many. So I think it's just the time is ripe. And I'm confident, the Delhi Bar Association is going to look at it and say, yes, we want women too.
Okay, thanks for that opening comment. And I want to ask Ma'am Pinky Anand here that we had women chief ministers leading states, a woman prime minister. We also had women CEOs. Now, so many of them, heading multinationals. Law is an area where, in a sense, the ascendancy of women has been slower than the other fields, because we had women politicians at the top much earlier. Multinational CEOs, GCs as women much earlier. It's only now at the bar, things have begun changing. Do you see this has taken some time to come, but it's good news? I mean, the Supreme Court, Justice Suryakant and Justice Ujjwal Bayan and Deepak Datta have pushed it. It's like breaking the glass ceiling, but it's taken its while, don't you think?
Of course, it's taken its while. You're right. I mean, law was considered a male bastion. And aside from the boys' club, as several people have classified it, and honestly speaking, Tarun, what happens is it's a professional life. Work-life balance is quite complicated. I mean, it's highly compromised. You don't have much of a life outside law. You're devoted to it. But then I don't want to go further, because even in politics, you do require that. It's not that you don't. So really speaking, it's an acceptance of a position that women can hold. That's about all I think there is to it. As a matter of fact, I personally didn't find much problem with where I was going when I started law, which is, of course, a few decades back. And it was easily accepted. But on a general note, there were very few women. And you're right, the ascendancy, the percentage was few people study law, leave law and start doing something else, and other issues like that. But here you needed to really get down. So I do think that law was staggering behind. It's like, for example, prevention of assault on women at workplace was something which came into other organizations much earlier, but it took its own while to come into the legal system. So that's what I'm saying. It's a step forward and a way forward where you really need to get on with it.
One small comment from you. It took the Supreme Court to push this. The Bar Association didn't do it on his own. What
No,
did you
it
like?
didn't. You're right. In fact, at the hearing in the High Court, the Bar Association was asked to step in and be, forward and progressive and offer it on their own. But unfortunately, whichever way there was hesitation. So the only way to out of this was to have a judicial direction from a great bench as we had today, led by Justice Suryakant, who is an amazing, and I think he will make it in the annals of history for having
Yes.
done this in the fashion that it is being done, because you have let's say, time being, you have some resistance of the bar. Hopefully in the next meeting it might be different, but as I said, I'm hopeful whichever way it goes, it'll happen. So either it comes through now voluntarily, or it comes through as a direction. And incidentally, this is not only for the Delhi High Court bar, this is also for all the bar associations in the district courts. The petition was, which we had filed and I had argued, Shobha Gupta's, was ultimately for a representation in all the bars, including, in fact, the Bar Council, but that's a slightly different story, but all the bar associations.
Point well taken. And same question to Meghna Mishra, partner Karanjawala and Company, that it took the 3 judges of the Supreme Court to push it through. Didn't come from the bar. Also says a lot that, in the end, it is the Supreme Court that has come to the rescue in that sense. Otherwise, it would have been many more years and nothing happening.
Yes, and it's very telling that from 1962, there has been no precedent women bar precedent. So yes, and so which is why this is so welcome that a push like this will take us forward by at least a decade or so, if I may say so, because it would have been one president, somebody, Miss Hingorani had contested for president and she gave a very good fight in Supreme Court. And so as women practicing in courts, we were all supporting her. And we were all very happy for the fact that finally someone was coming forward to contest for such a position and was being taken seriously because she's someone who practiced there and is a well-known person there. Of course, Mr. Sibyl won and, deservedly. But the point is that a judgment like this will just move us forward. And the years to come, and this will always trickle down. So as women come forward and are able to participate, maybe the need for this reservation will go eventually. But at the moment, certainly that is the need of the hour. And as ma'am rightly pointed out, you see a lot of women who join companies or join law firms are able to hold on. But women who are not in a company or not as part of law firms, but in counsel practice or running their own small offices, it is a very difficult journey. So if women are there in the Bar Association, they may be able to address some of the issues that they face. Small things like the creche that opened in the Delhi High Court, extremely welcome step. But these are, things that ought to have been addressed probably years ago, but it took its time. So today when there will be a fair representation, and in the Supreme Court has said and suggested, in fact, to the Delhi High Court Bar Association to consider for the post of the treasurer, and a senior advocate also needs to be given. So there are more and more seniors, as they are rightly pointed out, who have by the Supreme Court as also the Delhi High Court. So I think bench has done some which we will be very, very grateful.
Point well taken. I'll go to Diya Kapoor. I would like to highlight to Diya now that a few years ago, the Madras High Court had 12 women judges, and Justice Indira Banerjee was the Chief Justice. And we did a show titled that this High Court has the highest number of women judges. And who guess who our panelists were? Senior Advocate Pinky Anand joined us that time. Meghna Mishra was also part of that panel. And we celebrated that movement, 12 women judges. It tells a lot about the High Court also. It is a celebration that, they are contributing in the deliverance of justice and being entrusted with that responsibility. 12 was, but that's the best we saw, 12, not more than 12. And in a court when there are 60, 70 judges, 12 is not a big number, but it was the best we had. Since then, we have not gone back to that number, but I'm sure we will in some of the other high court very soon. I want to ask you, how do you feel today when you see somebody like Justice Suryakant, Justice Ujjwal Bhayan and Deeparkan Datta push this through, push this reform through? It didn't come from the bar, it came from the bench. Your feelings on that moment?
I think, like was being said earlier, I mean, Justice Suryakant has consistently shown, the last, along with Justice Vishwanathan, his last judgment, this judgment, that he really wants to push women in leadership positions. And I think that is so welcome because, it really speaks of a person coming from equality. We have many judges, many lawyers, many systems. And when, there's somebody standing up and saying that, look, there needs to be equality. Women need to be counted in leadership positions. I think it says a lot about the person. And I think that goes for, I mean, gender is sort of one, but I'm sure if we look at Justice Suryakant's judgments, you will see that across the board in every sphere, because, it's different identities and they should all be represented. They should all have a seat at the table. So I think it's wonderful. What he's doing, the signal he's giving, whether or not the Delhi High Court Bar Association takes this up or not remains to be seen. But I think the signaling factor is immense. And this is, where you started out the show by saying that, look, this is signal societal change. These are how the winds blow in the right direction. When it comes from the top, that this is where we want to see everything headed. I think it speaks volumes for where we are headed, and it inspires a lot of confidence.
Point very well taken. I'll go to Senior Advocate Pinky Anand. And now that we've got representation at the bar for women and in the Bar Association, now we will have. Do you think this should also now be reflected on the bench? We need more women on the bench going forward.
We do definitely need more women on the bench. And as I said, sometimes if it doesn't happen voluntarily, then it has to be pushed forth. But what I do understand at this point of time is I do find that there's a concerted effort to actually put more women in place. Possibly one of the reasons is that there weren't enough women at the pool, available in the pool. So you obviously cannot project them forward. But that has been one of the reasons. And I expect, as for example, look at the number of senior advocate women who were designated recently. So there is a general move in that direction. I hope that will come through on its own, failing which, yes, next we'll be demanding this.
Yes, that's a point. Over to Meghna Mishra for her comment on this.
So definitely, more and more women are being seen, and the process will continue, and it has to be a holistic thing. You see seniors being designated association. That's how you get women into the mainstream, and you hear them, and you know what are the issues they faced, and you give them a level playing field, which has been denied for so many years. So it's extremely welcome, and we are getting there for sure.
Before I go to Du, I'll ask a quick question to Senior Advocate Pinky Anand. Ma'am, do you think women's elevation to the High Court should come via a reservation type of a system, or should it come naturally via how the appointments happen, via the collegium, or first it should? I mean, just your thoughts on this.
No, as I said, I'm very clear about this. It seems it is on the way. It is happening. And it's been a reasonable representation. We've seen one judge in the courts. And from that one judge, it is converted to a reasonable number in the courts. It may not be 33%, but at this point of time, I feel the natural system appears to be working. And we hope that it will work, and we would not require. See, reservation is a tool to achieve the targets. If the targets are going to be achieved, then without that, there doesn't need to be. Reservation is not meant to be a permanent situation. It's meant to put people in the mainstream and then let them, and it has to be merit by the way. I mean, I must say that whenever we say that reservation doesn't mean it comes for the asking. It has to be somebody who's meritorious, who deserves it, so that she sets a standard for others.
My question is, if Delhi High Court has 65 judges, and if you can reserve, say, only 10%, which is about 6-7, 6-7 judges, only 10%, not 20-30. Do you think that's a good beginning?
We don't need it.
I
we
think
already have
more than that,
we
right?
already have, Tarun. That's what I'm saying. Diya, you're right. We already have higher
At
than
least
that
as far
number.
as the Delhi
So-
High Court is concerned, I think,
Yeah.
and each time a new lot is being suggested, I think
So
women
you think
are-
organically we are already doing better? We are having more
We are
and
doing
more
better, yes.
numbers. So
Absolutely. And the same will happen for even this
Supreme
issue.
Court.
Supreme Court also, I mean, we do need a little higher representation of the Supreme Court. But as I said, honestly speaking, I remember this conversation of pools. So you have to have the pool available to go further. It's on its way, Tarun. I don't think we need reservation for that process.
You don't wait. We'll take one final comment from Diya Kapoor, and then we can maybe close the show. Over to you, Diya.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that, the distinction between sort of, appointment of judges and bar council elections, I think the difference is this, right? Which is that in your bar council elections, you have a majority of men voting. And for whatever reason, men vote men. So I think that's why we need that reservation. And I mean, we actually have many leaders of the bar amongst the women who are doing a lot for the women, building communities of women, representing women's ideas. But I think it's time for integration because, women's issues are not women's issues, men's issues are not men's issues. We're all lawyers. And it's good if, the two come together and are leaders of the bar together rather than having these silos of women and silos of men. So I think in an election situation, you probably need the reservation, but possibly not, for an appointment system.
Point very well taken. So before we close, anybody for any point before we close? Meghna, anything that you want to comment on?
No, I'm just keeping my fingers crossed for the Bar Association to take a positive view, and I'm hoping that Supreme Court does not have to sort of push this any further.
We'll give the last word to Senior Advocate Pinky Anand before we end.
As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter how it happens. If it happens with the Bar Association, welcome. If it doesn't happen, it should be the other way. It should happen.
Okay. Point well taken. I really appreciate that Senior Advocate Pinky Anand, Meghna Mishra, partner Karanjawala and Company, and Advocate Diya Kapoor. You all took out time. You came out and spoke on this very important subject concerning women and their contribution to the field of law. And of course, in a sense, spoke about this judgment of the Supreme Court. Appreciate your joining us, and viewers, thank you for joining in. Thank you so very much.